So I'm with James Holland from Beacon Events. James, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you for inviting me into your little cosy hub.
That's all right, no problem at all. Help yourself to sweets.
Well,
we've got a few here.
Okay, now obviously you're into event safety, so are these sweets?
They are very safe. Yeah,
Safety,
we've been
yeah?
risk assessed. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
So we've got sweets. We also have cans. What is the purpose of the cans?
So the can of water is a sustainable can of canned water, so it's slightly more sustainable than plastic. So we're just demonstrating them from Cano Water. So yeah, very little shout out to Cano Water there.
Oh, I've actually never seen this before. A can of water. That's unusual. Is this kind of a new thing that's out?
Yeah, so relatively new. So I think they've got about 2-year shelf life. So yeah, they should be kind of kicking off across the country into next year.
Do you know what? We have to chat for a while, so I'm going to crack open a can of water and do the old taste test.
I think you should. What are you thinking?
Ooh,
Nice, isn't it? Cool.
Tastes very watery. Yeah, very watery. Yeah. Okay, so from water to safety, what are the biggest safety issues at UK events?
So there's the fundamental things such as temporary structures, so adverse weather. As you've seen with Storm Callum, adverse weather at the moment is a massive issue. We worked on the Cardiff Half Marathon last week and generally had pretty good weather, but another image that will be coming up is the Welsh Velothon, and we had, it was right in the middle of the heat wave, so excess heat is one of the issues that we really have to plan for, particularly something like a mass participating sporting event or cycling. Just being aware of the safety and the welfare of cyclists or runners, as well as, and I think probably one of your future questions will be about counter-terrorism. So the attacks last year, so Manchester and Westminster, just being a proportionate response to counter-terrorism. For example, hostile vehicle mitigation. So making sure that we've got an issue, here with the Velothon, making sure that vehicles can't egress onto the route where we've got 15,000 cyclists on the course. So there's a couple. What it's important to do is be mindful of the underlying safety issues. So adverse weather, medical, emergency planning, as well as the counter-terrorism risks that have come up in the last year or so.
And in terms of weather, for example, say if we were talking about the London Marathon or something like that, is the safety, does that include providing water for runners and sun cream if it was a scorching hot day? Is that the type of thing that you would cover, or is it more kind of routes accessibility, or just kind of stamping out danger?
Yeah, so everything from excess heat. So typically we have an adverse weather plan that then has kind of thresholds of temperature. So at what point does it become almost unsafe to run the event? Or you mentioned water. What are the temperatures where we need to look at maybe putting some extra resources in place, as well as things like if you've got a start finish. So this is an example of, I think, Velo Birmingham or Velo South, where we've got an indoor start finish area. An indoor kind of race village. If you are out in a greenfield space, then obviously you're going to have to be aware of just making sure that you've got ground conditions that are safe. Track mat or chippings on the ground, just so that you can then have your safe and all the infrastructure safely.
You know what? It's quite a rewarding job, then, isn't it, for you as someone who looks after the welfare of people? Do you get a kind of a buzz out of an event running safely?
Yeah, and absolutely. I think when you've done a festival or an event, or this is a project that Toucan Productions, who we work with quite closely up in Cardiff Castle, once you've had an event and 10, 15, 20,000 people have successfully enjoyed it, had fun, and got home safely, that really is a buzz that you can't really match.
Yeah, so obviously you want people to go to concerts and sporting events and come home safely. So what can events people do to keep their crowds and their audience and customers safe?
We look at it as how, put yourself in the customer's perspective. So how are you going to ingress the site? So getting onto site, circulation. So what is it you're going to be doing on site? So you're going to go to the bar, you're going to go to the food concessions, you're going to go to the toilet, you're going to watch some music, and then how are you going to egress? So the ingress, circulation, egress. So that how are you going to come on? How are you going to circulate around the space, and then how are you going to leave again? So those kind of three phases. So looking at what's the kind of circulation space around the event, what available space do you need, and then safely how are you going to get them away? So park and ride or transport, parking management. So we always try and plot it in kind of the path and the flow that the customer or the public kind of take around the event space, just to really ensure that it's really, really safe.
And in terms of tourism, you touched on that earlier on. Is that one of the biggest things that you're looking at nowadays? Obviously the threat level in the UK is increased so much. So is that kind of one of your primary concerns per event?
No, absolutely. And certainly some of the projects that we're involved in are quite high profile, sporting and music events. So really just a proportionate response to counter-terrorism. So working quite closely with the local authority, with the police, with the counter-terrorism security advisor, or the SECO as we often call them. Just ensuring that what is in place is proportionate to the risk. So, if it's hostile vehicles or left property that may be suspicious, so not necessarily just having a knee-jerk reaction, but just ensuring that what is in place is proportionate to the risks that we face. But yeah, certainly since the attacks, 5 key attacks last year, probably the awareness of counter-terrorism has certainly increased. It's something that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we all like going to concerts. I like going to a rave. Personally, I'm a bit of a raver. Don't know what musical taste you're into, but how can we stay safe if we're at a big concert in a massive crowd? How can we, as audience and kind of concert goers, stay safe? If we're in Glastonbury, kind of squeezed down the front of a stage, what's the best way to keep safe?
So, before you kind of have your pint and you go in the mosh pit or you go, into music, kind of set a bit of a meeting point to, you know that if something happens, you've got a place to meet, and maybe if you've got to go with friends, just check in with them every couple of hours, and really just know where the information point is, know where the first aid medical centre is, know where, your nearest security or stewarding team are. So if you have to report an issue, an incident or a problem, then you've got that point of contact. But really it's having a good time, having fun. That's why people go to festivals and events and music events, but really just be mindful of where the exits are and so on. So just kind of again proportionate, so that you're aware of what to do if something happens.
Right. So this is the big question that I'm going to ask now. Are mosh pits safe? Yes or no?
So
it's kind
of
a hard one to answer, isn't it?
Maybe. So very dynamic crowd movement in mosh pits, in a very managed environment. So certain festivals download, for example, where mosh pits will be quite common. It's a kind of self-inflicted kind of crowd movement that the crowd are putting on themselves. The challenge is making sure the rest of the crowd around the area are safe. So if you've got people who are moshing, then if you've got people who don't want to mosh, as it were, step away from that area. So I'd say kind of yes or no.
I would say the safest mosh pit would probably be at a royal wedding, where everyone. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you. And finally, what is the craziest thing that you've seen over your years of providing event safety?
Oh crumbs! I was thinking about this earlier. We did a project down in Cardiff Bay where we had a giant plastic whale, absolutely massive. It was almost the size of 3 shipping containers high. So that was quite interesting. Other than that, I'm not sure. It'll probably come to me after the interview.
Yeah, you'll be in bed tonight.
Yeah, I'll certainly remember. Yeah.
The scariest thing that you've ever seen?
Oh crumbs!
An Irish man with a microphone.
Well, this is the Irish man stealing our water and our sweets. When you have large crowds that aren't managed safely, there's not a crowd management plan in place, and what could have or potentially can go wrong, that's quite scary. So I think that's where a lot of the work we do in the planning phase is to make sure that the ingress, circulation, egress, and also the information, the management phases of that crowd are there. Just making sure. So we've got probably about 30,000 capacity crowd here in front of Cardiff Millennium Centre. A lot of planning for Toucan went into planning this to make sure that the egress to get them home was safe. Otherwise, it could be scary.
Well, do you know what, right? You do a really good job at making sure that everybody goes home safely, and I'm sure nobody comes up and thanks you personally. So on behalf of everyone who you keep safe at all these events and festivals, I'm going to thank you personally. Thank you very much, James, on behalf of myself and everyone in the UK and the world.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ryan.